In the heart of a lush forest, with towering trees surrounding her, the atmosphere was serene. After searching for a while, a young girl named Violette finally found the person she was looking for. In the distance, she saw a boy, Akkad, leaning listlessly under a large tree, as if he were trying to hide. Violette called out her friend's name. Hearing the call, Akkad turned toward her. His expression seemed to question why she had come so suddenly. With slow steps, Violette approached Akkad. Her face showed a hint of disappointment. Her body language explained everything. She just wanted to hold his hand before he ran away again. In response, Akkad immediately bent his knees and hugged them tightly, a self-defensive gesture. He remembered his father's warning about the gloves he must never take off. And yet, Violette was trying to remove them. Violette met his gaze with a look that seemed to say, "This rule doesn't matter if it's me." However, this silent explanation did not calm him. Instead, Akkad's face began to flush, and tears started to well up in his eyes. Violette froze, slightly surprised to see her friend begin to cry. Feeling her efforts were in vain, Violette heaved a long, weary sigh. In a fit of childish desperation, she made a dramatic declaration, a strange promise she hoped would stop Akkad's tears. Hearing this, Akkad, still sobbing, momentarily stopped crying and looked at Violette. The shock was clear on his face. His eyes widened as an unexpected word managed to cut through his sobs. But the surprise lasted only a moment. His face turned red again, and his tears broke forth once more, this time even louder than before. Seeing his reaction, Violette could only stare at him in resignation. She was completely at her wit's end. She didn't know what else to do to calm her friend. Seeing that Akkad was still crying, Violette changed her tactics. She sat closer and tried to soothe him by reminding him that his father once said crying would make his face ugly. However, Akkad retorted with an innocent gaze, as if to say that his mother always told him he was pretty. That simple argument managed to silence Violette for a moment. In her silence, her gaze softened. She observed Akkad's tear-streaked face, his soft pink hair, and his glistening eyes. In her heart, she admitted that her friend still looked charming, even while crying. Searching for another way, Violette tried offering a compliment. She said that Akkad shone even brighter than a noble woman named Lady Roselorn. Akkad just stared at her, confused. He knew Violette had never met the woman. Feeling stuck, Violette looked at him with hopeful eyes, as if asking what else she should do. But Akkad remained silent, not knowing how to respond. Losing her patience, Violette pointed at Akkad with an annoyed expression. She repeated her earlier threat, this time in a more earnest tone, hoping it would finally stop his crying. However, her attempt failed spectacularly once again. Akkad let out a small shriek, and his crying grew even louder. His reaction baffled Violette. She could only stare in disbelief, unable to understand why her attempts to comfort him always had the opposite effect. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps was heard. A grown man emerged from the direction of the garden, his face showing concern after hearing the crying. His gaze immediately fell upon the two children, as if he already knew what had happened. Seeing the man arrive, Violette immediately ran to him. With a defensive gesture, she tried to explain that Akkad had started crying on his own. The man looked at Violette skeptically, then turned his gaze to Akkad's red and wet face. Violette's expression soured into a pout. She felt like the man would always side with Akkad. Meanwhile, the man knelt slowly, his attention now fully on Akkad, trying to find out what had truly happened. The male attendant carried Violette while holding Akkad's hand, leading them out of the garden. He glanced at Violette with a look of confusion. Her behavior had been very strange lately. Violette suddenly fell silent and lost in thought. Her gaze became vacant. A few moments later, she jolted back to reality and stared at her maid. "I feel cold," she whispered. The maid's face immediately turned panicked. "Oh no, this is serious. Miss might catch a fever like this," she exclaimed anxiously. She quickened her pace. "We must get Miss to her room right away." "Master Akkad, could you please walk a bit faster?" Akkad immediately agreed. The scene shifted to Violette's warm bedroom. Violette looked at Akkad, who was still standing awkwardly. "Akkad," she said softly, "your eyes are swollen like a rabbit's when you cry, you know." She reached out her hand, but quickly pulled it back. Ah, sorry, my hands are dirty. Akkad didn't care about the dirt. His eyes were fixed on a small scratch instead. More importantly, he said with concern, your hand is hurt. Oh, this? Probably scratched by a tree branch, Violet replied, then grumbled slightly. Besides, it's your fault for hiding in the bushes. That's my play area with my brother. I was bound to find you. Akkad ignored her complaint. Does it hurt? He asked again. Violet rolled her eyes. Do I look like I'm in pain? She retorted. Then, finally sighing, she extended her hand. Fine, then you hold it. As their small hands touched, Violet's mind was thrown far back into the past. I, Violet Diaz, have a secret. Everything began after an incident where I fell in the garden and lost consciousness. When I woke up, I remembered everything. This world is actually the world from a novel I once read in my previous life. I was reborn as Violet Diaz, the sister of the novel's male protagonist. And in the story, Violet Diaz dies young, murdered. My death becomes the catalyst that turns my older brother, the male lead, into a tyrant. I was merely an extra character destined for an early demise. What the heck? I'm going to die at age 10? I thought in horror back then. I don't even remember how I die. Was it illness or someone else's doing? Since that moment, this body has been falling ill more and more often, as if confirming my fate. Eventually, doctors and priests gave up. The only way for Miss to survive is for her to always be careful, they advised. That advice sounded more like a death sentence. Luckily, there was one hope amidst all the despair. Violet's reverie faded. That hope was Akkad Enoch, the childhood friend now standing before me. This boy had a magical ability to heal others just by touching them. I clearly remember the moment he healed me back then, whispering, "This is our secret. Don't tell anyone, okay?" And I promised to keep it to myself. Oh, I wish Akkad could always stay by my side every day, Violet murmured unconsciously. Akkad looked slightly surprised. Every day? That seems difficult. I need my parents' permission first. I know you can't, Violet replied gently. Of course she knew. According to the original storyline, Akkad would leave for war at 16. It was there that he would realize his feelings for my brother, Vern. The novel I reincarnated into was a BL, boys' love novel. But Violet had absolutely no intention of helping their love story. Wasn't her top priority simply to survive? At this point, she had no idea when or how she would die. Her sole purpose was to try everything she could while Akkad was still by her side. Still hurting? Akkad's voice brought her back from her thoughts. Violet looked at her now completely healed hand, thanks to Akkad's touch. She smiled and shook her head. He really was a good kid, she thought. Akkad, she called seriously. Do you really worry about me that much? The boy looked straight into her eyes and nodded sincerely. Yes. That single word solidified Violet's resolve. With sudden movement, she pushed Akkad backward onto her bed. With a determined expression, she gazed at him and whispered, "Tonight, sleep with me." The negotiation continued between the two children. Akkad showed his hesitation, asking in a low, uncertain tone, "I slept here last week too, right?" Violet looked at him, putting on the most pitiful expression she could muster. She explained that she needed to sleep with him to avoid having nightmares and the terrifying feeling of sleep paralysis that often woke her. "But when I'm with you," she continued, her voice softening, "I can sleep soundly." Slowly, she tried to remove Akkad's gloves, subtly asking for his help. In her heart, Violet felt guilty for taking advantage of such a gentle child. She avoided Akkad's gaze, thinking how pathetic it was to have to touch a boy who would one day fall in love with her brother. However, the urge to survive was far stronger. Violet already had a long-term plan. She just needed to endure until Akkad went off to war at the age of 16. After that, once she was old enough, she would find and marry a healing priest. That way, she could live a long life without sickness. Suddenly, Akkad refused, crying. "No," he sobbed. Violet thought to herself that the child's wariness was excessive. Akkad then explained his reason through his sobs. "I haven't told my mother." Hearing this, Violet quickly lied and reassured him. "Don't worry, I've already told her." Akkad looked at her in disbelief. "Really?" Violet just smiled, thinking to herself that she would tell the Duchess later. and that the most important thing for now was to have Akkad stay by her side. Her mind then recalled the incident from that afternoon while she was bathing. Her attendant had smiled upon learning she would sleep with Akkad. Violette had confirmed that she had already sent a request to the Duchess Enoch and had asked for pajamas to be prepared for Akkad. But then, the attendant had panicked. "Oh my! You must get out now! Your skin is starting to turn red!" she exclaimed worriedly, even though the water temperature had been lowered. Violette thought at that moment, even a cold bath could make me ill. It reaffirmed her belief that she absolutely had to stay close to Akkad to survive. Back in the present, Violette told Akkad to come closer, but he refused with a red face. "Ugh, why? It can't be like this every day," Violette said, her tone firm and slightly annoyed. Akkad shyly replied that sleeping together was something you do with someone you like. Violette thought to herself that Akkad hadn't said anything last night. She tried to reason that they were only sleeping in the same bed, but Akkad still refused. Violette was confused, remembering that in the original story, Akkad's relationship with her brother was mostly platonic until a final kiss. Seeing Akkad still hesitating shyly, Violette lost her patience. She tossed the dividing pillow aside, surprising Akkad. The next moment, Violette was already hugging him tightly. Akkad, confused and nervous, could only call out her name. Violette then tried a new tactic. "Akkad, just think of me as my brother." Akkad's eyes widened. "What?" Violette continued with a smile. "I know you like my brother, Vern. Our hair and eye colors are the same." Instantly, Akkad shouted, "No. You're different from Brother Vern." Violette wondered internally if he was offended. She then apologized. With a red face, Akkad insisted, "Really, you're not alike at all." Okay, Violette conceded. "Then let's just hold hands." As she held his hand, she complimented his hair, saying it was so beautiful and soft, it felt like she could melt. Akkad, who was blushing, thought to himself, "You're the one who will melt." His mind drifted to Violette's image, her blonde hair like sunlight, her blue eyes like gems, and her pale, fragile skin. Even though she was so fragile, she was always the first to hold his hand. Akkad realized he could easily refuse, but he couldn't bring himself to, for fear of Violette getting hurt. The next day, during a meal, Akkad offered his pudding to Violette, asking if she didn't want it. Violette smiled sadly and explained that she would get an immediate stomachache if she ate food like that. "This damned body," she muttered, "will even get sick just from eating vegetables." Akkad looked at her with deep understanding and said, "Ah, I understand. I'll do my best for you." Violette then saw the pudding and urged Akkad to try it too. Akkad, who was chewing, said he was already full. But Violette smiled and replied that there should be a separate stomach for dessert. "My happiness is that you eat well and are healthy. That way I'll be healthy too, right?" she said warmly. Akkad opened his mouth and accepted the spoonful from Violette. In his heart, Akkad felt it was strange. "You're the weak one, but I always feel weaker in front of you. Just seeing you laugh like that almost makes me cry," he thought. That night, as Violette slept, a voice called to her in a dream. "Viol?" A male figure appeared and asked, "How long will you keep your eyes closed?" Violette wanted to answer, but she couldn't move. The man looked at her as she gasped in her sleep and said, "You said you could sleep soundly if I was beside you." As Violette slowly opened her eyes in the dream, the man whispered with a sad and serious face, "Liar." Violette woke up with a startled shout and looked at Akkad, who was still holding her hand, confused. Akkad, nervous and blushing, said, "Yes, it's me. Can you please let this go?" Violette murmured to herself that it felt like a dream, but she couldn't remember anything. Akkad then explained anxiously, "I don't know if you woke up. Was it because I let go of your hand?" Internally, Violette thought it was better to focus on reality than the dream. She then replied to Akkad, "Yes, it was because of that. You should have kept holding it until I told you to let go." Akkad protested, "How could I do that?" Seeing Akkad feeling guilty and apologizing so she wouldn't be mad, Violette, who was initially confused, suddenly had an idea. "Yes, that's right. I'm mad," she said, surprising Akkad. Violette then smiled mischievously and continued, "So, how are you going to make it up to me?" Following the previous event, Violette led Akkad to a dressing room filled with beautiful dresses and shoes for a young girl. As Violet opened the door, Akkad asked in a confused tone, "Violet, were you serious about what you said earlier?" Violet replied with a smile, confirming that Akkad could ask for anything. Akkad then said he would do whatever she asked. Violet then touched a beautiful blue dress. "Look at this! I think you would look so beautiful if you wore this," she said, presenting the gown to Akkad. Akkad was shocked and immediately refused. "No way! This is women's clothing," he exclaimed. Violet retorted with a firm tone, explaining that it doesn't matter if it's for a man or a woman. If it suits you, you can wear it. Akkad tried to deflect by suggesting that Violet should wear it instead, since it all belonged to her. Violet sighed, then explained with a sad expression, "I want to wear it too, but all the clothes in here are heavy, so I've never worn them. If I wear one, I'll surely get sick in less than 10 steps." She added that it would be better if someone tried it on before it was simply ignored. In his heart, Akkad recalled that the dresses Violet usually wore were always the same. A simple design that just covered her thin body, with minimal lace and ribbons, so she could move around without tripping. Violet, who internally hated seeing his refusal, continued her act listlessly. "All right, if Akkad can't do it, I have no other choice. This is heavy, I'll just put it back. My arm hurts so much." Seeing this, Akkad couldn't bear it. He took Violet's hand and said, "Wait." Violet turned around, confused. With a red face and a shy voice, Akkad said, "Promise me that only you will see." Violet's face immediately lit up with joy. "Yes, your friend promises," she replied. A few minutes later, Violet was waiting impatiently. "Are you done yet?" she asked. From inside, Akkad replied with a nervous and shy shout, "Not yet. Don't look over here until it's on." Violet turned back around, holding back a smile. "Okay, I won't look," she replied. In her heart, she thought about how cute he was when he was shy. She remembered how a year ago, when they bathed together, he would already cry and blush easily. Violet felt she could lose track of time just by looking at Akkad's expressions. While waiting, her eyes caught something interesting, a beautiful ribbon. "Oh my, I think this would look beautiful as an accessory with that dress. I'll put it on him later," she thought. Then, Violet turned around and accidentally saw Akkad, who had just finished putting on the blue dress. Akkad, shocked and embarrassed at being seen, let out a loud scream. "AAA, you said you wouldn't look yet." Violet, also a bit surprised, replied, "Huh? No, this time it was really an accident. I didn't mean to look." Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps was heard, followed by a shout, "Lady Violet, what's wrong?" The door burst open, and their attendant, Alan, rushed in frantically. "Are you hurt?" he asked. However, he immediately froze solid when he saw Akkad wearing the blue dress. Alan stood there for a moment, then quickly bowed respectfully and exited the room as fast as lightning, saying, "My apologies, I have disturbed you." After the door closed, Akkad, who was thoroughly mortified, finally burst into tears, shouting, "Violet, you liar." Violet immediately panicked. "It's not my fault." "Ah, no, I'm sorry, please don't cry, Akkad," she pleaded. A few minutes later, Akkad was still crying. "I hate you, Violet," he mumbled between sobs. Violet looked at him and said gently, "You're beautiful." Akkad asked, "What?" Violet continued, "I'm happy to see you shining." "I'm sorry, please don't hate me too much," she said with a pitiful face. How about this? This time, I'll let go of my anger towards you. You can ask for anything you want." Akkad's face immediately flushed upon hearing that. In a disbelieving tone, he asked, "What do you mean, anything?" Violet confirmed it and asked if he could remember anything he wanted when he looked at her. Akkad became even more flustered. "I can't think of anything when you ask so suddenly," he replied. In his heart, however, he was actually thinking, "I only see Violet's beauty today. Her skin tone is nice, and her lips are red." Feeling overwhelmed, Akkad suddenly shouted, "I don't know," and ran out of the room, leaving Violet behind. Violet, confused by the situation, immediately chased after him. "Akkad, don't just run off like that. I can't catch up to you," she called out. She then saw Akkad talking to someone in the hallway. The person was telling Akkad that it was dangerous to run in the corridor. Then, the man turned and greeted Violet. "How are you today, Violet?" Violet was shocked. In her heart, she screamed, "Brother! Why now of all times?" Before that moment, a brief flashback showed Violet's older brother, Vern, asking Alan where his sister was. Alan hesitantly replied that Lady Violet was in the dressing room. Vern's face, which was always shining with a smile, looked puzzled. "Really? I heard she's been feeling better lately. Is she getting interested in dresses?" Without waiting for an answer, he started running, saying, "I have to go see her." Alan, shocked to see Vern running towards the dressing room, tried to stop him in a panic. "Ah, wait, Lord Vern. It's better if you don't go now." The footsteps of Violet's older brother, Vern, grew closer. Vern thought to himself how good Violet's condition seemed today. It had been a long time since he had heard such energetic sounds. As he arrived, he saw his sister with Akkad, who was wearing a dress. "It's dangerous to run like that. How are you today?" Vern greeted. Violet fell silent, looking at her brother with a confused expression and asking what he was doing there. Vern replied that he was curious after hearing Violet was in the dressing room, so he had rushed over to see her. Vern then looked at Akkad with confusion. Akkad, still in the blue dress, shyly said he wanted to go down. Suddenly, Vern shouted, "What? Why is this child wearing Violet's clothes? This is the dress I gave you for your birthday." In his mind, Vern felt a dislike for Akkad Enoch because the boy had been by Violet's side so often lately. Vern then said to Violet, "Even if you two are childhood friends, wearing someone else's dress is a bit." Violet immediately cut him off. "I was the one who told him to." Vern's expression instantly soured, and he called it a very cultured game. Akkad, feeling extremely embarrassed, tugged on Violet's clothes and whispered that he wanted to leave now. Violet, seeing her brother's cold attitude was upsetting Akkad, looked at Vern with slight annoyance. She then changed the subject. "By the way, I want to ask you something, brother," she said. When Vern asked what it was, Violet directly asked, "Are you in love with someone right now?" Vern gave his sister a brilliant smile. "Oh my, something like that? Of course not. Your brother is always here for you, Violet." But Violet cut him off again. "No, that's enough. I've heard what you had to say. For now, stop making people feel this way, okay? Even if you want to date him, you need to get my permission first." Saying that, Violet grabbed Akkad and walked away. A panicked and confused Vern asked where they were going, but Violet just smiled and replied that her brother didn't need to know. A few minutes later, in a forest-like place, Violet explained to Akkad that the earlier incident was a mistake that happened because he had suddenly run off and encountered her brother. "So, starting tomorrow, let's stick together like this," Violet proposed, taking Akkad's hand. She continued with a strange promise that if they stayed together, the same thing wouldn't happen again, as if her brother's eyes would simply close if he saw them. Akkad smiled at that and asked how she could do it. Violet just smiled mysteriously and said they could try it next time. In her heart, Violet was relieved that Akkad was smiling again. As they walked, Violet asked, "But you were happy to see my brother earlier, weren't you?" Akkad replied, "Yes," with a confused tone. But in his heart, he wondered, why does she keep talking about Brother Vern? He then said, "Honestly, I don't know, Brother Vern doesn't like me." Violet saw Akkad's face suddenly turn gloomy and cursed in her heart. "My brother is such a jerk. He's disappointed this child again." She reflected that in the novel, Akkad could only admire the one he liked from afar without ever being able to touch them, which must have been painful. Suddenly, Violet hugged the surprised and blushing Akkad. "But you still have me," she whispered. In her heart, she made a vow, "You won't suffer because of your own kindness. Because of that, I will help you as much as you have helped me." With great conviction, she looked at Akkad and asked, "You trust me, right? As a friend?" Akkad nodded and replied, "Yes, I trust you." Violet then remembered something. "That's right, you didn't tell me what your wish was earlier. What are you going to tell me next?" Akkad immediately blushed and said, That? I don't think we need to talk about that right now." The next morning, at the Enoch residence, Akkad's mother asked her son, who was looking gloomy at the dining table, if he had fun yesterday. Akkad only replied, Yes, maybe." In his heart, Akkad was anxious. He thought, Violet said that. I don't know how Violet feels. Even though I showed that side of myself yesterday, will she still want to see me again? His mother found his behavior strange. She then showed him an invitation, saying, "Look," she sent another invitation. "Violet seems to like you very much. Her handwriting is so beautiful. Should I make her my daughter-in-law?" she said with a smile. But by the time she finished speaking, Akkad was no longer at the dining table. "Akkad, where did that child go?" In a room, Akkad shouted for his nanny. "Nanny, get out the clothes I bought last week," he yelled. The nanny was surprised. "What? So suddenly?" "But the clothes are being altered because the sleeves were too long." Akkad panicked. "How can that be?" "Then the shoes. Get everything out. The brooches, right, my hair. I need a new hairbrush," he said, flustered and blushing. His nanny could only try to calm him down. Outside, 2 servants were peeking. One of them said, "Oh my, I've never seen Lord Akkad act like that before." The other servant smiled knowingly. "That's because you're in the holy quarters. You don't know. He's always like that when he has to go to the Marquis Diaz's residence. It seems spring has come for our young master." Meanwhile, at the Diaz residence, a well-dressed Akkad arrived and shouted for Violet. Violet, who came out, was surprised by Akkad's appearance. "Wow, Akkad looks handsome today, too," she complimented with a smile. Akkad's face suddenly turned red, and he nodded slightly. "Yes, Violet is pretty too," he replied. In his heart, Akkad resolved, "Today I must show my true self." Violet also thought, "It's rare to see him dressed so neatly. I almost thought we were going to a ball. Maybe because my brother's reaction yesterday wasn't very good. He's showing off a cool look today." She then said to Akkad, "It's a shame my brother isn't home today," while pulling a sheet from a clothesline. Akkad replied that he came to see Violet, not her brother, then asked why she was taking the sheet. Violet smiled and said, "Well, I do like cool clothes, but this is what we need today." She then asked Akkad, "Have you ever been to the backyard at midnight?" Violet continued with a story. "Did you know? During a full moon, before the clock bell strikes midnight, if you look into the abandoned well in the deepest part of the backyard, that's where a fairy appears from within and grants a wish." Akkad asked with a curious tone, "Is there really a fairy in the well?" Violet replied cheerfully, "Yes, I heard it from the servants." However, Akkad immediately thought to himself, "Liar." Violet saw Akkad's surprised face. She asked, "How did you know?" She immediately tried to reassure Akkad. "I'm not lying, okay? I always tell the truth, you know." Akkad retorted. He said that even at the temple, the wishes he made during the full moon festival were not granted. Violet then asked if Akkad had ever been to the temple before. Akkad replied, "Yes, last year with my mother. And my wish didn't come true." In her heart, Violet thought, "Sut, I already knew that things like fairy tales couldn't possibly happen." However, her face immediately lit up with enthusiasm. She said to Akkad, "But the story about the well in this tower, it's real, you know. Do you think I'm a liar?" In her heart, Violet lamented, "Damn, you really don't trust me at all, do you?" She looked at Akkad. He still seemed unconvinced. Violet then said with a deliberately nervous tone, "So, only I get to meet the beautiful fairy? Is Akkad a scaredy cat because he can't go? Do you just want me to get my wish granted for you?" Akkad, hearing this, immediately panicked. He shouted, "But it's not that. It's dangerous at night. What if something happens?" Violet then put on an incredibly adorable face. She said, "Are you really not going to go? I'll be lonely if I go alone." Akkad paused for a moment. Then, with a blushing face, he replied, "All right, let's go now." Violet's face instantly beamed with joy. In a kitchen-like room, Violet said to Akkad, "Akkad, get me the cookies over there." Akkad asked with a hesitant tone, "Can I take a lot?" With full confidence and a smile, Violet replied, "It's fine. It's fine. This isn't even enough to wait until midnight. We don't know if we'll get hungry, right?" Violet then picked up a bottle. Its contents looked like coffee. She commented that the bottle was quite heavy. Then she tried to climb onto a chair. Akkad, seeing this, immediately panicked and grew anxious. "Be careful!" he exclaimed, rushing to steady Violet. Violet said, "That was close." "Akkad, nice catch!" Akkad, his body trembling, replied, "I can't hold on for long." They then fell together. Violet asked Akkad, whose face showed a little pain, "Akkad, are you okay?" Akkad replied, "I'm fine." "What about Violet?" Violet replied while hugging him, "Of course I'm okay. You protected me." In her heart, Violet felt extremely happy. She could feel Akkad's healing power bit by bit. She really wanted to kiss him. Meanwhile, in Akkad's heart, he wondered, "Why is my heart pounding so fast? Am I nervous because I was afraid Violet would get hurt?" His face turned red as he said to Violet, "Violet, we have a task to do, right?" Violet immediately remembered. "All right, let's get ready quickly." A few seconds later, Violet announced that the boiled water was ready. Akkad helped her carry the teapot. He poured the coffee-like liquid into cups. They both stared at the tea. Akkad commented, "The aroma is the same as what Mother usually drinks." Violet's face instantly lit up with pleasure. She explained, "This is a magic tea that keeps adults from falling asleep. If you just take a sip, like this." Violet tried to demonstrate. In her heart, Violet thought, "This body might pass out from a caffeine overdose. But the story will be different if Akkad is by my side." She then held Akkad's hand. Akkad, in his heart, was surprised. "Violet!" As Violet tried to drink the coffee, Alan suddenly appeared. He spoke with a panicked tone, asking, "What are you doing?" Violet was startled while still sipping the coffee. She quickly put down the teacup and turned to Alan. "Alan, when did you get here?" she asked. Alan immediately spoke. His tone was panicked and slightly shouting. "I told you not to come to the kitchen because it's dangerous. Both of you get out of here before I tell the Marchioness." Akkad, hearing this, thought with anxiety, "If this reaches the Marchioness and I get scolded, I won't be able to come play anymore." His face looked extremely shocked. He immediately grabbed Violet's hand and shouted no. Violet, surprised by her hand being pulled, said to Alan, "You can't come, okay?" Alan was shocked. He noticed something in Violet's hand. Wait, Lady Violet. Oh my, when did she become such a troublemaker? Besides, why do you want to drink coffee? Said Alan. Meanwhile, Akkad and Violet had run far away. "Akkad, I'm out of breath," Violet said, panting. Akkad was immediately surprised. "Sorry, I ran for too long, huh?" Violet, while slowly catching her breath, replied, "You don't need to apologize. I actually like it, you know." Akkad asked in confusion, "Yeah? What?" Violet smiled and explained, "You kept holding my hand. It feels like I can go anywhere with you." Akkad then said with a nervous tone, I can also go anywhere with Violet," while tightening his grip on her hand. Violet immediately smiled. She flicked her finger towards Akkad. "Exactly right. Just like that. Let's keep our spirits up until midnight." In Akkad's heart, he felt panicked. "That's a bit. I'm not sure, and it's dangerous. A fairy, right?" Eventually, tired from waiting, they fell asleep. 2 months later, in a royal corridor, Akkad was seen peeking left and right, checking the situation. "Violet, there's no one out there," he said. Violet replied disbelievingly, "Really?" In her heart, Violet thought, "All this time I've been happy to call you every full moon under the pretext of the well legend. But it seems today we'll really be facing a ghost." She immediately got out of bed. She said to Akkad, "Akkad, aren't you sleepy?" Akkad walked towards her and replied, "I already took a nap earlier." Then in Violet's heart, she said, "Because I was the one who told you about the fairy, unfortunately, you can't refuse if you want to go there." As Violet let out a sigh, she immediately said to Akkad, "Hand?" Akkad replied while immediately taking Violet's hand, "Yes, here." Violet immediately smiled and said, "Okay then, let's go meet the well fairy." As they walked, Akkad asked with a frightened tone while looking around, "Violet, did you hear something strange?" Violet replied with a casual tone, That's just the sound of the wind. In Akkad's heart, he thought, "Oh my gosh, my hand." Unconsciously, Violette turned to him. She looked confused. Then she held Akkad's hand tightly. "If you're scared, you can hold my hand tighter. Or you can walk while looking at me," she said. Akkad's face immediately turned red when he saw Violette's smile. In his heart, he said, "If there truly is good in this world, it would surely have a smile like Violette's. Wouldn't it?" That night by the well, Violette noticed Akkad's state. She said, "Akkad, are you cold?" Akkad immediately replied, "What? No." Then Violette touched Akkad's face. She said, "Really? Why is your face so red and hot?" Akkad's face turned even redder. He answered nervously, "I'm really okay, just a little warm." Violette, with a confused expression, said, "Thank goodness then. Is it because of the blanket? Hang in there, even if it feels dreary. You might catch a cold." In Akkad's heart, he thought that the problem was his ability. It wasn't working on himself. With a blushing face, Akkad thought, "But why is Violette so kind to me?" Violette, as if hearing him, immediately said with a confused tone, "What is it?" "Because your power for me is very special." Akkad's face immediately showed surprise. He repeated Violette's words, "Special." In Violette's heart, she wondered, was my answer unclear? She immediately said to Akkad with a thoughtful tone, "So, no one knows about your ability except your parents and me. Also, of course, you and I, we have a special relationship." Akkad's face turned red again. He said, "Oh, I see. Okay." Violet then held the blanket Akkad was holding. She said to him, "Because of such a special relationship, I can give you anything. You can take all my toys." Akkad immediately asked, "Even if it's Violet's favorite toy?" Violet replied with a sweet smile, "Of course. I like you more than my toys. So Akkad, in the future, you must also hold hands like this only with me, okay? Never hold hands with other children, okay?" Then Akkad's face turned red again. He immediately replied to Violet's words, "Yes, I'll never." In Violet's heart, she thought, "I can't believe you're listening to me. I'm sorry, but I'm proud of you." She then said again to Akkad, Even so, it's okay if it's Brother Vern, my family, also Akkad's family including Alan, and also." Akkad's face instantly looked a little confused and gloomy. He immediately said to Violet, "That's too many." Violet immediately turned back to Akkad. "Yeah, okay. In that case, just do it with me." Then Akkad replied to Violet's words earnestly, "Really? Only with Violet?" Violet replied while holding a leaf, "Yes, only with me." In her heart, Violet thought, "Because even if I make this many promises, in the end, Akkad will have someone more precious than me." Violet then spoke to Akkad about the well. In her heart, she thought, "Oh my, look at this atmosphere. That's why there are rumors of ghosts appearing." Violet then turned to Akkad. She said, "Now, hurry up and make a wish." Akkad replied with a confused tone, "Yeah, but the fairy, she hasn't come out yet." Violet, looking panicked, said, "She must be fine in there." Then Akkad tried to open the well cover. He said to Violet, but Violet said, "To make a wish, we have to see what's inside." Violet was startled and surprised. In her heart, she said, "He really wants to open it. I was planning to leave after hearing Akkad's wish." Violet immediately said to Akkad. Her tone was nervous, but she tried to be calm. "Is that so? Let me help." In Violet's heart, she thought, "I have no other choice. Let's get this over with properly." She again said to Akkad, "Let's open it on the count of 3. 1, 2. In her heart, Violet thought again, "Besides, it's dark, so we won't see anything anyway." At that moment, on the count of 3, Violet emphasized her words. And they managed to open the well. They both looked into the well. They seemed amazed by its contents. Akkad said, "Violet, do you see the fairy?" Violet replied to Akkad, "It feels like something is twinkling." Violet looked in detail at the contents of the well, and she saw the figures of 2 people. Akkad, feeling curious, called into the well. What? Hello? Is anyone there? Violet was startled. She immediately covered Akkad's mouth. Akkad said with a panicked and stuttering tone, What was that? Was it a ghost? Violet, panicking, immediately said, No, just a bird. Calm down. Suddenly, they were surprised. Their lantern fell into the well. Then Akkad cried loudly, waking up the entire palace. Of course, they were scolded. Violet kept protecting Akkad, who was still crying. Then Violet tried to deflect. She said that there must have been something in the well. Vern then said to Violet, Calm down. It must have just been your reflection. Alan commented, That's strange. Vern looked at Alan with a confused tone. He asked, Why? Alan immediately replied that the well had been dry for a long time. Both of them were startled. Akkad was very frightened and trembling. Vern then said to Violet, Don't worry, Vio. If you're really scared, you can sleep with your brother, starting today. He opened his arms wide, as if asking Violet to hug him. Violet immediately shouted and hugged Akkad instead. Yeah, then what did we see? I'm scared. Vern, whose face immediately turned sad, said to Alan, Investigate the contents of the well at dawn. Alan spoke with a slightly worried expression. He saw Vern was a little sad because he was ignored by Violet. The next morning, one of the servants said, Oh my, the ghost well has finally been filled. The head butler immediately turned to the servant next to him. Ghost well? He asked with a curious and confused tone. The other servant immediately said, Doesn't the head butler know? There's a rumor going around that you can see ghosts there at night. The head butler immediately said, Ghosts? How did the gossip change the story so much? It wasn't that bad, actually. The other servant immediately said with confusion and curiosity, Oh my, so it was different initially. The head butler immediately replied, Yes. Not many people know because it's old. Quickly wash the blankets, Lady Violet brought. Enough with the chit-chat. The other servant immediately said, Wait, you have to adjust the story. An old, forgotten rumor, at midnight on a full moon, before the clock strikes 12, a story where one could only see destiny from within the well, now remains an eternal mystery. That night, in a room, Violet was trying to persuade Akkad. Akkad, I'm really sorry, she said. Akkad, who was still crying and keeping his distance on the bed, said to Violet, Violet, you liar. You already knew everything. I don't want to go to the well anymore. Then Violet replied, Okay. Even if I wanted to, I can't go. In Violet's heart, she thought, Now what excuse do I have to call him? One day, Akkad seemed to remember the incident from yesterday. His father asked, Akkad, Why are you sighing so early in the morning? Is something wrong? Akkad then said to his father, Father, I want to become strong. In a forest-like place, Violet was seen making dance-like movements. Soon after, Akkad appeared. You're going to learn swordsmanship? Violet asked. Her face was filled with disbelief. Akkad then replied to Violet, smiling gently, Yes, I've decided to take classes starting tomorrow. Violet spoke again. How can you possibly lift something with hands as gentle as these? Akkad's face instantly turned red. He said to Violet with a nervous tone, If I learn, I'm sure I can. The scene then shifted to show Akkad feeding a strawberry to Violet. In Violet's heart, she thought, I can't believe you're already learning swordsmanship. She knew from reading the original story that Akkad, as the eldest son of a duke, was strong enough to go to war at the age of 16. But this is too soon, she thought. Violet's face suddenly turned gloomy. She looked down and said to Akkad, If that's the case, you can't play with me anymore, can you? Akkad, blushing, turned to Violet. He tried to reassure her. No, even so, I'll come visit often. Violet spoke again, her face growing even more listless. We can't sleep together either. Akkad replied, a little confused. Maybe once a week. Violet then firmly stated her own demand. Every 2 days. Akkad immediately replied, confused and a little panicked. That's difficult if it's every 2 days. I also don't know about every 3 days. Violet's face instantly lit up with an energetic smile. Okay, we'll sleep together every 3 days, all right? Then Akkad, full of enthusiasm, said, yes, I promise. In Violet's heart, she thought, if it's every 3 days, that's similar to our previous meeting cycle. So I won't have to make excuses every time. Violet then held Akkad's hand. She said, if you can't come, write me a letter. Akkad asked with a confused tone, what? Write what? We'll be seeing each other often anyway. Violet immediately said, whatever it is. There are no secrets between us. Someday, if I can no longer hold you with words like these, and when your world becomes so vast, I don't want to forget you, because the me by your side is the person closest to you. Akkad was deeply touched by Violet's words. He murmured, Violet. Then Violet, with an energetic tone, turned to Akkad. She said, in that case, you must start writing tomorrow. Akkad was surprised. His face immediately turned red, and he said, okay. The following days felt very different. Akkad had to start his sword training, though they also still exchanged letters. One day, his trainer said, all right, you've all worked hard today. The trainer then immediately said to Akkad, hurry to the reception room. There's a letter for you. Akkad, startled, replied, yes. He immediately rushed to the reception room and saw a letter on the table. He quickly picked up the letter after putting down his sword. He thought to himself, a letter from Violet. What did she write today? I'm always curious. What do you do after class ends? Suddenly, someone tapped him with a sword. Akkad was instantly surprised and turned around. The boy said, you can't even dodge this? Are you sure you're following the sword class properly? Akkad replied, this isn't training time right now. The boy, who turned out to be Chad, Akkad's cousin, replied with a mocking tone. Does a homebody like you even have time to train? As he spoke, he used his sword to knock the letter from Akkad's hand. He taunted Akkad again. You said you wanted to get stronger? Chad continued to mock him. You're so slow like this. When are you going to get strong? You lost to me all day today. Akkad picked up his letter again. He looked annoyed. What does that have to do with you? Stop this silly fight. Chad replied, what if I don't want to? In Chad's heart, he thought, I can't believe this child is the heir to the family. The same lineage. Yet I didn't get a single chance and have to live as. I am superior in skill and quality. I can only watch that fool inherit the seat. Life is unfair. As he thought this, he threw a tissue at Akkad. Akkad shouted, stop it, while blocking Chad's attack. He continued, I said stop. In Akkad's heart, he said, Violet told me not to injure my face. Chad, whose face was starting to look very annoyed, said, you're mistaken. You're not in a position to give me orders. As he spoke, he kicked Akkad in the stomach. He then continued, because I'm here to help you, at Father's request. He then hit Akkad's shoulder with his sword, continuously insulting him. Fight! Keep going. You're short, a crybaby, always following a girl. Why is your hair such a weird color anyway? And where is that letter from? She's a fool. That's no place for you to build friendships. Doesn't her brother know what's the use of meeting a child whose body is weak and will die soon? Hearing that final insult, Akkad's face became terrifying. He immediately attacked Chad again, knocking him to the floor. Chad looked extremely panicked and shocked. He backed away slowly. In his heart, he said, where did he get the strength? He then asked Akkad, what do you want? Akkad immediately glared at Chad. His voice became incredibly menacing. Take back what you just said, Akkad uttered. Elsewhere, at the Marquis Diaz's residence, one of the servants said to Violet, my lady, did you sleep well? Violet, while waking up from her sleep and rubbing her eyes, replied, no. In her heart, she said, I used a blanket without a collar because I was afraid of catching a cold, but in the end, I couldn't breathe all night. My hands and feet are stiff, My head hurts too. I only sleep soundly when Akkad is here. But it's okay. Because today we meet, Violette said with a cheerful smile. Violette shouted, What? A letter? Akkad can't come. Her face instantly filled with panic and worry. Vern, her brother, replied, Yes. Only a letter came. While showing the letter to Violette, Violette immediately snatched it. Give it to me, she exclaimed. The content of the letter was brief. Sorry, Violette. I can't go for a while because there's a problem. Your friend, Akkad. In her heart, Violette wondered, What problem? Is this 50-year training so much fun? Did you find your hidden talent? So much fun that you forgot about me? This isn't fair. I want to see Akkad's sword training too. Violette immediately shouted at her brother. I want to go play at Akkad's house. Vern, who was drinking, immediately replied, No. You'll catch a cold even just by riding a horse carriage. The servant said you couldn't sleep well last night. Today, you must continue to rest quietly. One day, with a weak voice, Violette thought, In the end, all I can do now is write a reply. I'm always at the mansion, and there are hardly any words I write in my letters. She pondered, Why is Akkad's letter so short? He didn't even say anything about his opponent. I hope Akkad comes soon. We can't meet if you don't come, she murmured while looking out the window. That night at the Enoch residence, one of the servants knocked on Akkad's door. Lord Akkad, a letter has arrived from the Marquis Diaz family. In his room, Akkad read it under his blanket. The letter from Violette read, Hi Akkad, what can I do if you can't come? But isn't your letter too short? You should have written at least a full page. I want to know what's been happening to you all this time. How was your training today? Haven't you made any new friends? What snacks did you eat during tea time? How many times did you cry and laugh today? I want to know everything. Could you perhaps tell me what problem is keeping you from coming next time? I'll be waiting. Your closest friend, Violette. Akkad smiled as he finished reading the letter. In his heart, he said, I can feel Violette's feelings in the letter. Her voice sounds so cheerful and clear. But I are sure she'll be angry if she sees my appearance like this. His mind jumped to the incident when he and Chad fought. Chad had said with a panicked and nervous tone, If I don't retract it, are you going to tell father? Akkad replied with a very annoyed face. I wouldn't do that for a coward like you. But I can't forgive you for bad-mouthing Violette. Chad, whose face showed a little fear, hesitation, and also great annoyance, said, I'm not a coward. He then picked up his sword again. In Chad's heart, he thought, it was because I was careless earlier. And Akkad's weakness is clear. Just because he's afraid my sword will touch his face, he even closes his eyes. You think I don't know? So this time too it will surely. Chad immediately tried to attack Akkad's face. Akkad immediately parried the attack, making Chad's sword jolt in surprise. In Chad's heart, he thought, he didn't close his eyes. Akkad then, with a cold tone, while glaring at him annoyedly, said, This is your last warning. Chad Courtney, as he pointed his sword at Chad. Chad then shouted, Stop it. He then shouted again, All right, I'll take back what I said. Damn it. You ruffian. Akkad's reverie ended. How is this? When will I heal? He thought. Violette told me not to injure my face. Akkad's body kept trembling. He always wanted to cry and felt scared too. In his heart, Akkad thought, she will definitely be very angry, or she will be disappointed in me. They said if I apply ointment every day, it will heal quickly. I also need to sleep a lot. Can I go tomorrow? Violette, I really miss you. Are you eating well? And are you sleeping soundly? I hope you know that I also want to get to know you better. A few days later, the sound of fast footsteps was heard. Akkad's father immediately turned around. He asked Akkad, who was running in the corridor, Akkad, where are you going in such a hurry? Akkad immediately answered his father, his face very cheerful. I'm going to see Violette. His father replied to Akkad's words with a smile. Going to the Marquis Diaz's residence? Akkad answered happily, Yes. Rabbits were born at Violette's family farm, so we decided to watch them together and eat cake continuously. But Akkad kept looking and glancing to his side, and it turned out to be Chad. In Chad's heart, he thought sarcastically, Akkad, you rotten scoundrel. You said you wouldn't tell father? Actually, you already told him, didn't you? Then Chad smiled respectfully at Akkad's father. Good morning, Duke Enoch. Akkad just glared at Chad with an unhappy expression. Akkad's father looked confused. In his mind, he thought, I heard there was a difference of opinion during a fight. Akkad, seeing Chad again on his way to Violette, also thought to himself, I see him again. Akkad's father then started the conversation. He asked Chad what he had discussed with Chad's father. He then asked Akkad and Chad, have you two not made up yet? They both answered out of sync. Akkad answered yes, while Chad answered no. They glared at each other again. In Chad's heart, he grumbled, ugh, this stiff child. At a time like this, just let it go. Drama causes trouble. But why do I have to say we've reconciled? Akkad's father sighed. He then said to both of them, Chad's father, Count Courtney is my only younger brother. We both only have one child, so I want you two to be like brothers to each other. If both families unite, no one will be able to treat us carelessly. In Chad's heart, he thought bitterly, you speak as if it has nothing to do with living as your son's shadow forever. Then Chad said to Akkad's father with a smile, the Duke's words are indeed true. Akkad, was I excessive last time? I'm sorry. I'll be careful from now on. Chad then extended his hand. In Akkad's heart, he thought, I don't want to shake hands with him. However, if there's trouble here, I won't be able to see Violette. Akkad finally accepted the handshake from Chad. Then Chad pulled Akkad's hand to bring him closer. He said to Akkad in a menacing voice, come to think of it, they say Lady Gia is always in the mansion. Wouldn't she be scared to see your dirty hands? Akkad was shocked. He pushed Chad's hand away forcefully. Akkad's father immediately shouted at him, Akkad apologized for that. Chad, with a smile, immediately said, no, I'm fine. It's because he's still young. I have to understand. Then, on the way to the Diaz residence, Akkad said in his heart, I almost got involved again. I should stay calm. Akkad then said to the servant, can you go faster? The servant replied that the horses were already going as fast as they could, and they would arrive soon. In Akkad's heart, he said, Violette must be waiting for me. What is she doing now? What if she got sick while I wasn't there? Did she cry? Upon arriving at Violette's residence, Akkad cheerfully opened Violette's door. He said, Violet, I'm here. Violet was startled. Akkad, you came earlier than I thought. Akkad looked surprised and confused. Then Violet laughed a little. You see, Alan is tying my hair. Violet immediately hugged Alan. My night is indeed cool, Violet exclaimed. Then Akkad's face turned a little gloomy. He said, Violet, is she that close to Alan? Does your guardian knight always do that? Violet immediately replied to Akkad's words. What? He doesn't usually do it, but I wanted him to do it today. Akkad then said to Violet with a sad and confused tone, Why? Violet then replied with a confused tone as well. Huh? Why? A few moments ago, before Akkad arrived, Violet was grumbling, annoyed and very listless on her room sofa. I'm bored. All my energy has flown away, she complained. Alan immediately replied to Violet, Because you are lying in such an odd position, you will quickly become tired. Lord Akkad will be here soon, so please get up. Violet then replied, Why? What will you do if I look cool for Akkad? In Violet's heart, she thought, Anyway, he doesn't see me as a love interest. In that case, I'll just be like this for a bit. My head is dizzy. Alan smiled while saying, Please do. Violet looked at Alan's long hair. She said, By the way, Alan's hair is nice, isn't it? How do you take care of it? Alan answered Violet's question. I don't know. I don't pay too much attention to it. Violet became confused. Why? Didn't you grow it long because you like it? Alan then replied, It's not that I like it. It's just that. Lady Violet often cried because your hands couldn't touch my hair. That was when I was younger. I couldn't tie it high until my hair was a bit longer. Because she always fell asleep when I touched her hair on my back, so I don't remember at all. I don't know. Besides, is it really okay to grow my hair long just because of me? Alan then smiled and said, Why not? I will do anything for Lady Violet's well-being. In Violet's heart, she thought, Alan, you're really a good person, even if your nagging is a bit excessive. Violet's gaze was slightly touched. She then asked Alan to tie her hair. She said, In that case, would you tie my hair high like Alan's too? Alan replied to Violet's words, Of course, but if I tie it high, it will definitely be painful, so I will just braid the lower part. Violet said with a happy tone, Yes, that's good, but Alan, you can see my hair better than I thought. What do you think? Returning to the present, when Akkad had arrived, a female servant who was supposed to tie Violet's hair glared at Alan. Ah, my lady, I'm the one in charge of tying your hair, she said. Alan, feeling uncomfortable, immediately said to the female servant, Why are you looking at me like that? The female servant replied, I feel uncomfortable. Violet immediately got off the sofa. She approached Akkad saying, Akkad, it's been a long time since we met. It feels like you don't like it. In Violet's heart, she thought, Is it too much if I ask to hold his hand first? I'd better wait, or he'll think I'm too forward. Akkad then removed his gloves, and he pulled Violet closer. In Violet's heart, with surprise, she said, I've never felt energy like this before. Has it been a long time? Akkad then broke the silence first. Violet, is there any change in me? Violet, you look more beautiful when your hair is down. In Violet's heart, she said, This doesn't make sense. It's like a storm flooding my body. Even though it's a power that makes me feel better, my heart is wild and I feel strange. Violet then immediately shouted, Ah, Akkad, enough. You're holding it too tight. It hurts. Akkad was startled. He released Violet's hand while apologizing. Violet immediately said, Akkad, what makes you think you're stronger than me? You didn't even compliment my hair. Doesn't the color look cool from the front? In Violet's heart, she thought, I said that earlier, but I'm starting to get angry for no reason. She immediately nagged Akkad. You mean I'm not pretty with my hair tied up? Akkad, confused and a little panicked, immediately said, That's not it. Violet, whose face had turned slightly angry, said, Then what? Akkad lowered his head. His face turned rosy again as he said. Violet waited for Akkad to speak, her face confused as she looked at Akkad's reddened face. Then Akkad said again, I think this tying your hair up is better. In Alan's heart, he said, Lord Akkad, hang in there.